Hi, my name is Holly Wallen, and I am a member of the Refocus and Recharge class. I decided to talk to my son, Stevie Wallen, who is a sophomore at Elizabethtown. He's studying elementary education, and he may do something with special education. And I thought it would be neat to get his perspective on burnout and demoralization because he's so excited about education and going into teaching. And so I wanted to talk to him and kind of get his perspectives on what he thinks it's going to be like as he travels down the field. So I read an article from my class, and the article talked about the difference between teacher burnout and teacher demoralization. And so the difference in the two is it's hard because teaching is like a 24/7 job. You've seen it all your life because
Right.
you went to the high school where I taught. But it's also a lot of teachers are demoralized by administration, by parents, by the community. When things go wrong, it's always blamed on the teachers, and sometimes it's just too much, and teachers leave the field. So talk to me about what makes you excited about teaching.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm really, really excited about and kind of what helped me choose what level I wanted to be in is how excited most elementary school students are about learning.
Mm-hmm.
I just find it really awesome that you already have that excitement coming in, where I feel like sometimes at like a secondary level, it's harder to get the students motivated to do things. So definitely one of the things I'm looking forward to is having that student excitement and like kind of just the desire to learn already coming in.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Part of the reason that I took this class is because I had such a tough year last year.
Right.
I had probably had the toughest group of seniors that I've ever had. And what you say brings me back, because when I started teaching for the first 10 years of my career, I taught in elementary. And you're right, they are eager to learn. Mm-hmm. And if they're not eager to learn, they're eager to please.
Right.
And so it's a great area to be in. But as I've gotten older, and as all of you have gotten older, I have kind of adjusted to the older kids, and I really enjoy working with them now because there's so much conversation and give and take, and I feel like I can really make a difference as they're getting ready to graduate. But it has been a tough year, and I think that sometimes as teachers we could kind of get looked down on. Anything that's wrong in society gets blamed on teachers. Have you talked about that at all in your classes, or?
So we've talked a lot about kind of the perceived pressure that comes along with being a teacher because of what you mentioned. Like, you are blamed for everything because you are spending, honestly, during the school year, like more time with these kids than they're spending with their families. So you're the biggest influence for them. And like we have talked a little bit about the fact that like we have to keep in consideration that while we do have a large impact on students, their environment is really the biggest thing that impacts them. So I guess to answer your question, we've talked a little bit about that, but I think it's one of those things that you don't really feel until you're there, because to me it's like, well, I mean, how much can you blame yourself? But
right, and that's true. I do think environment plays a huge role because we only have them for 7.5 hours, and while that is most of their day, Monday through Friday, when they go home and when they go back into that environment, they quickly resume acting and talking the way that they always did. So sometimes you are kind of fighting an uphill battle. What do you think about, like, what are you most excited about? And there's really no right or wrong answer, but what are you most excited about as you enter teaching?
So one thing that I've always kind of been like a driving force for me going into education is the idea of being able to teach so many different things. Again, with early ed, because I have a lot of interest, and there's never like really been one subject that I'm like absolutely interested in over another. So I think I'm really excited for that, and I'm excited to do it in kind of interesting, non like typical ways. And that's something like we talk a lot about at Eton, is like teaching students more than just like talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like obviously, especially in the early levels,
like project type activities.
Yeah, kind of like projects, but also just like learning as an experience is something we always say. So like projects can go along with that, but really learning and then doing.
Okay,
So I'm kind of excited for
What about how do you feel it will be moving into a school, relating to other staff members, relating to administrators?
Yeah, I guess that's something that I haven't thought as much about. Obviously, right now because I'm just like so focused on like classes.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I think that every school offers its own unique atmosphere, and I think that that's just something you kind of have to feel out as you go. Like, obviously, not every school is going to be like Remedian,
Right.
and that's honestly something that's been kind of so, like a little off-putting to me, I guess is the best word for it. Like going into placements, schools are so different. Like school to school, because like anytime we go into schools, at least every semester, to observe or whatever, and every school is so different. Like even within 10 minutes of each other. So
that's true. Every school culture is different.
Yes.
Have you kind of seen that a little bit when you're in the schools? I mean, you have, because you say it's different. Do you get like a warmer feeling in some places than others? Do you feel like you're expected to be more professional in some places than others?
You know, I definitely kind of what sets the tone the most, I think, is my co-op teacher. Because it's the way that they carry themselves is really like what I try and base myself off of. So like for example, the first place that I was in was a private Catholic school, and obviously that atmosphere was very different from the place I'm in right now, which is K through 2 autism support in a public school in Lancaster. So obviously those atmospheres are already very different just by the classrooms I'm in,
right?
But also the way that the teachers carry themselves, and that kind of goes along with it too, because I think like my private Catholic school was a third grade classroom, and so those kids already had more responsibility, and there was higher expectations of them. But yeah, I think that every school has its own set ideals that they promote. You know, like Remedian's really big on in the elementary school, like the spread is it the spread your wings or something like that? They have like those
the
like,
kindness challenge.
Yeah, like and that's something for Remedian that we have. So yeah, I mean, I definitely have felt a difference.
Yeah, and I think that school climate has a lot to do with the whole burnout factor. I mean, certainly the job itself is huge, but a lot of what I've learned and read in this class is there's so much more to burnout than just simply the demands of the job. There's also how you take care of yourself and how you interact with other staff members and the relationships that you have and the bonds that you build and the administration that you're dealing with. And I know that for me, I've always loved Bermudian, not because it was the highest paying district, but because it's where we lived. And I knew the kids, and the staff is, I think overall, it's very welcoming. It's hard as I get older because I do think that the young staff have their things that they do, and the older staff isn't always included in that.
Right.
So, you know, that kind of makes you feel a little bit more isolated, but I'm working hard to kind of keep myself involved in things. I think that's really important. So what do you think about curriculum and the fact that sometimes in districts you're kind of given the materials and you're told this is what we're going to teach? Obviously all schools teach to the standards but in Pennsylvania, but what's your feeling about being given like a math book and being told this is what we're going to teach for math and these are the lessons that you have to do? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit in my classes. And something, the common consensus is when you're given material, it makes your first few years easier. Because you have that and you know what you have to do, and it's more like a checklist, like checking it off. But the drawback with that is then once you get comfortable with it, it's like, oh, I've been doing the same exact thing over and over and over again. And it's the exact opposite when you kind of have more of that freedom to teach it how you want to, because at first it's overwhelming. Like, how am I going to do this? Like, just getting in the habit of it. But then once you get in your routine, and you are like, oh, well, I've been doing this, you have the freedom to change it up. So,
and that's true. Another thing that I've learned in this class is one of the activities we had to do is we had to take a lesson and put more of our own interest in it. So, you know, with my seniors, I do a career big research project in the beginning of the year. And so I actually next year I kind of redid the lesson, and I'm going to talk about how I designed a program that I was passionate about, the credit recovery and intervention, and I'm going to share how like I did my research, and I'm hoping that that keeps the students invigorated and interested.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I did this year is, and I don't even know if you know this, seniors always read Brave New World. And so with my learning support students, I've always mirrored that curriculum. But this year, Mrs. O switched to the book Muchacho. So we also switched.
Oh,
so we're
okay,
doing a
cool.
new novel. Have you read that book?
I haven't read that one, no.
So I think it's a little, some of the language is a little questionable, but I like that it is very relative to the students, and they can really seem to relate to things, and it seems like they enjoy the book, and they enjoy their learning and everything like that. And so I'm excited that that book is so relative to them. I feel like it's a really positive book, and I think that they can relate to it much better than they relate to Brave New World.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited about like freshening up my curriculum and doing some new things. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand, like with the burnout part. Just doing the same thing year after year after year, if you don't freshen it up and change it, it gets boring. Like you can almost do it in your sleep. So I think that that's really a big thing. What do you think about community and the way that you're looked at as a teacher? And I think this is a good one for you. Probably our last talking point on this video, but you're a really good student. You have a 4.0 grade point average. And so when you meet people at E-Town, they ask you how you're doing and, oh, what's your grade point average? And then what are you studying? And you say education. And what do?
They, a lot of times you get the kind of rolling of the eyes reaction to it. And it's because there is that stigma that, like the saying that, people who can't do teach. And that's something that, obviously that's not the case at all, because, you want the best people in society, hopefully, ideally, are the ones that are passing on the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm saying I'm one of the best people in society. But I think that there is such this idea that teaching is easy. And one thing, my roommate's a business major. My girlfriend's a math major. Obviously, their classes are very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing that always gets said is, like, I'm making a lesson plan or, like, a family newsletter for one of my classes, and they're working on equations or, like, breaking down numbers. And it's, like, oh, man, your classes are so easy. And I think that something that I've come to realize is that my classes are easy to me because I'm interested in what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that they're easy to everyone. And I think that says a lot about teaching as well. Teachers, when they enjoy their jobs, they enjoy it because they love what they're doing,
mm-hmm.
not because it's easy to do. Because I think if you talk to any teacher, they would say it's not easy to do.
No, it's not easy to do, and it's kind of a thankless job, too.
Oh, yeah.
And certainly teachers aren't the best paid, and they're not all, and in today's world, they're not always looked up to. Parents are pretty quick to defend their child,
Yeah,
And so that's a tough thing. Well, I wanted you to know, I wanted to do this with you because I think part of what got me through my difficult year last year was watching your excitement as you were entering the education field. And so I know you can't really relate so much to the burnout and the demoralization piece, but what you can do is be a motivator for somebody that's been teaching for 24 years. And so I do appreciate that, and I think you will be a phenomenal teacher, and hopefully one day we can do this again, and I can give you some pointers and keep you motivated.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate talking about this as well. And I think that it's important to think about like the burnout and the demoralization kind of things, because those are realistic, and that happens to a lot of teachers.
Yes.
even if you are completely in love with what you're doing,
it does,
because I know you love your job too.
I do.
And so I think that when you think about these things and you're almost like kind of proactive about it, it can help you in the future if you face those things. So
I agree. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.